Alright, so as of yesterday, after the protests in Cuba started, I've been seeing one of my favorite Twitter accounts all over the place giving the "that's not true socialism, that's not true communism" line. This account, of course, is the Socialist Party of Great Britain, about 31,000 followers strong, so I've talked about them before. They're fairly prominent. But okay, so Cuba, North Korea, and Venezuela, they're not true socialism. Alright, well, first off, do they not find it at least a little suspicious that it is socialists and leftists themselves that praise these places? With the exception of North Korea, I've admittedly only seen very few people defend North Korea, and those are the real nutty, pure tanky types that do that. But Cuba and Venezuela have been praised in the past to a pretty high degree by the likes of not only Bernie Sanders and plenty of his supporters, but AOC has done so as well, and her supporters as well. Where were they wrong? They used those places to say, see, look how good socialism can be. They nationalized industries. The workers' revolution has a lot of traction there. All these private businesses were expropriated. The profit motive is no longer what reigns supreme there. And it's actually not bad living there. Every bad thing you've heard about them is largely propaganda, they say. And then usually footage comes out and refugees escape and shed some light on how life is actually miserable there. And those people who are flapping their gums tend to clam up and keep quiet, just as Sanders, AOC, and Ilhan Omar are doing right now on Cuba. Haven't heard a word from them. Kind of strange. I'm sure they'll come out eventually and yell about how the embargoes are what's to blame, as if that's the whole story, but I digress. Now, to be fair to this Twitter account and other socialists and communists, they're technically correct when they say it's not really socialism or communism. Certainly not communism, because that, by definition, is a utopia where you have mutual aid societies and all needs and wants are met, and you don't even need to work for any of it. And yeah, I know that sounds like some cliche criticism some Republican would make back in the 80s or 90s about socialism or communism, but it is all over the place with these people. They say it outright. Hell, they say it here. That people will just work voluntarily in jobs they want to do, and it's collective ownership. You own it, no need to buy it. It's yours. You have free access. You don't necessarily have to work for anything. There's just some seemingly supernatural element to all of this, where mass extraction of raw materials, production, distribution, transportation, all of these things, all of these goods and services just become available. And entropy itself, it seems, is somehow halted. No one needs to be the janitor. No one needs to be the sewage worker. No one needs to be the logger. No one needs to be the septic tank cleaner. No one needs to be the miner or the railway worker. No government is necessary somehow, despite the fact that people generally wouldn't do these jobs if, as these socialists say, you only have to do precisely what you want, and everything you need or want you get, regardless of your productivity. No government would be necessary in their world to force them to do these jobs. They don't explain how that works, and they don't explain how the natural human inclination to want to own things, say a small to medium-sized business, and carve out a good life for yourself with that, would go away. They don't explain how that would go away without a massive crushing government either. It's all completely incoherent. Because not for nothing, that list that people usually rattle off as examples of where socialistic ideals went awry, Soviet Union, North Korea, China, Venezuela, Cuba, that list you hear is actually a very small portion of the real list. You could easily add more places where this ideology took root. The workers' revolution was going to bring about prosperity and a better life for all, and it ended up being a complete hellish nightmare. Yeah, Soviet Union, Ukraine, Cuba, Venezuela, they were all bad, but there's also Congo, Eritrea, Nicaragua, Afghanistan, and Somalia. I know leftists like to say Somalia is a libertarian paradise, conveniently leaving out the part that it was torn asunder by civil wars involving socialist factions. But there was also East Germany, Albania, Bulgaria, Romania, Mozambique, Yugoslavia. The list goes on further than that even. I just wonder, if it even ever crosses the minds of these socialists and leftists, could it be that there is something at the core of their ideology that makes it go wrong in this deadly, fatal way, and makes it so the utopia never comes, and makes sure that it will always, inevitably, take a sharp turn down the path towards authoritarianism and insanity? It might just have something to do with what I mentioned before. This ideology demands unnatural things of people, and when the people fail in doing this, because they're acting naturally. In their eyes, the violent revolution begins, and the most violent among the revolutionaries filter their way to the top and won't be returning any power to anyone anytime soon, as violent people in power seldom do. It could also be, as I said, that given the monumental, outright impossible things this ideology demands, or promises, rather, it absolutely necessitates and requires a continually authoritarian government. So socialists like this can continue saying that Cuba and Venezuela and the long list of other places where socialism and communism have been tried aren't really socialist places, but that's just it. They're right. They're not socialist or communist because they're not a utopia, because the utopia never comes. The revolution will always stall out while it's crushing people into submission, with that utopia always just over the horizon, but it never comes. But anyway, that's all for now. Like, subscribe, share this video. It's extremely appreciated. You take it easy.